Donc, bonjour, bienvenue à cette troisième journée
Welcome to this third day of the BuildingSMART Summit. The second day is the second day on digital shift.
Donc, hier, pour faire un petit récapitulatif, on a parlé aussi beaucoup au niveau des stratégies et un peu des tactiques qui doivent être mises en place pour faciliter la transformation numérique dans l'environnement bâti, notamment ce qui se passe au niveau gouvernemental, au Québec, au Canada et aux États-Unis. Nous avons aussi parlé de qu'est-ce que ça veut dire la transformation numérique et le BIM pour les municipalités, ainsi que dans le domaine des infrastructures et des transports. Et on a fini la journée avec une ouverture sur, dans le fond, c'est quoi ce concept de jumeaux numériques, qu'est-ce que ça veut dire, comment est-ce qu'on le facilite avec des exemples un peu très concrets, et aussi des bases qu'il faut établir. Today we'll be going into the actual foundations and looking at how do we operationalize these strategies, how do we actually implement action based on these plans and these roadmaps that we're trying to achieve, and what the potential is within the municipalities in the infrastructure and transport domains, and of course other domains. So we'll be looking at actual, this morning we'll start with what is openBIM and what does it mean. One of the missions we had when we started planning this event was to socialize and get more traction with the concept of openBIM in Canada. It was a concept that was maybe misunderstood. There's been a lot of interesting discussions online around openBIM in Quebec and across the country. We'll also be looking at, what's the interaction, what's the potential for openBIM and digital twins, and how does that actually facilitate, accelerating change? This afternoon, we'll be looking at standards in practice. How do organizations actually implement and structure, and the importance of those standards to structure practices and processes within organizations. And we'll finish the day with a bit of a look ahead, and we'll have a panel of academics, industry experts to discuss and present a bit what's going on from a research perspective and from an organization or a not-for-profit sector. So without further ado, sans plus tarder, je vais inviter mon premier conférencier.
This being said, I will bring my first speaker to the floor, who has the heavy task of waking us up and putting us ready. I know that Brent is able of this, so he's quite excellent. I'd like to invite Mr. Brent Mauti.
All right, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you all for attending. 9 a.m., tough time slot, so let's have a bit of fun. Making data dance, I was debating whether to actually dance, but that would be terribly embarrassing, so I'll just let the data do it for me. So I'm Brent Mauti. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Turner Fleischer Architects. 2 years makes me sound so young. I actually have 2 decades of experience, but 2 years here at TF. We are 243 people, 47 years experience, 2 offices across within Canada, and we do a multitude of projects. And this is one of the first things, BIM, the myth of BIM, that it's only a certain type or topology. I love the dialogue yesterday that BIM is a process spanning multiple types of sectors. We service various sectors from wayfinding, interior, straight to high-rise residential, urban planning, site development, industrial, commercial, you name it. For me, it's all BIM. It's all about data. It's all about assembling something and doing something with that information. One of the takeaways yesterday was breaking data into info. So what is all the data? We have a multitude of stuff, and I want to step outside of the realm of the project. So we have a studio. We're an office. We're a practice. We generate data. If I'm aiming towards the world of a digital twin, I can't just be in that BIM data. I need to extract all that data. So the studio, that video is just showing a laser scan, Revit model, actual studio. We use our studio as a prototype for things. And obviously, I want it to be my first active and functional digital twin. We have people, expertise, project managers, history of knowledge and wealth of experience, all of that is data. All of that's going to feed eventually where we go. And then, of course, projects, or BIM, arc, struct, mechanical, electrical, interiors, plumbing, civil infrastructure, utilities, water piping, etc. It doesn't matter. Roads, bridges, that's all BIM. Those are all the assets that we do at the project level that we design, we coordinate with construction, and then we, as architects, certify for completion, and they get realized and used by society. All of this is data. So I said, great, what do I do with that data? How do I tap into that data and actually start to use it so it can all fuse together in what would be a digital twin? So, for me, I'm a Power BI fanatic. And the stuff I can do with Power BI is make your data dance. So we can do stuff with it. This is just a drill down donut chart. There's so many examples of how data can actually move and be sliced and diced and experienced, taking what is otherwise just points of data in a SQL database and making it something I can interact with and experience. That's what I want to do with data. And I want to do that with the multitude of the types of data that we have. So I looked at Turner Fleischer, 2 years in there, saying, what do we have? What do we actually do organizationally, individually, and then for the projects? And I'm going to do the projects last, because often we jump into the world of, I have BIM, I have models. How do I get those models out and do stuff with that data? That's important. What about everything else? And what is that everything else? So here I am, a practicing architect, professor at a couple of colleges. I come into a firm and I say, what do we do? Well, the first thing we do, let's talk about a work breakdown structure. How do we actually work? What is it that we do across our various sectors? So with all of these examples that are following, these are all just various ways I took a data source, federated it, and made it available for all to consume using Power BI as my engine. I don't work for Microsoft, but I love Power BI. So here, different types of projects, different work breakdown structure. We have 4 levels. How do we slice and dice what we do? So what does that mean? A laser scan. Awesome. You don't just go and scan. You plan it, you coordinate it, you scan it, you process it, you model it, and you deliver it. Those are 6 fundamental tasks that make a successful laser scan. And laser scan is just one small little BIM use of existing conditions of an overall project. So we go to that depth of everything we do. All those listed there are the various types of work, interiors, wayfinding, etc. What do we do in the various phases of the project and the various tasks for all those phases? So this is just to convey the understanding of how we function. Now, how did we function? So project financials. I have a couple ex-students in the conference, though I've got to say it, scope, schedule, budget, right? This is my budget. How, as a project manager, can I be accountable for the work that we're doing to make my pathway towards a digital twin if I don't know if we're doing it well? So take that WBS, connect to the financial system, and federate that data so I can slice it, dice it, visualize it, and connect it to who knows what. And I wanted to open up that potential. So this is just my dashboard filtered by me. I can see my projects for specific clients, specific different PMs, etc. So I can drill down and understand how I'm functioning in the moment and my historical performance. Why does that benefit me? Well, if we go back to my 3D model making, what did we promise? How did we deliver it? Did we deliver that value of design review? Did we do it within our budget, within our scope? This gives me that data to understand it. So that gets me how we work, how we performed. Now as CTO, I like to spend money. And I realize I always go to the CFO saying, can we buy this? Can we buy this? There's a lot of buying that happens in order to enter this realm of digitization. So the amount of invoices and purchases, I wanted to understand what we were doing. What are the trends and how can I push us forward? So this is a log, 2+ years of purchase orders, supports, Microsoft 365 subscriptions, computer hardware purchases. It's all there. It's all at my fingertips, and I'm able to understand how we function. What does it cost for us to be in the digital realm? How does that impact how we function as a practice, how we price our projects? how we have to engage our clients, how we have to engage our consultants. When a consultant says, I'm not doing any BIM, I'm good in the old 2D world. Well, I want to tell that consultant, no, you are going to do BIM. This might be the software cost. This might be the cost of engagement. Weave that into the price, and let's just make it happen for betterment of society. So we can't use that as the barrier, because I still hear that. I don't want to do BIM, and I don't get it. But that's okay. Technology is great if we apply it. This dashboard tells me how well we're using our specific skills. This is 3D printing, laser cutting. So the whole concept of model fabrication. What do we have planned? What are we doing? Guess what? Model fabrication is great. We've got 3 machines, but when they're running, well, we can't do anything else. They're running. Sometimes a 3D print takes 3, 4, 5 days. So understanding what we're doing. Comp design. There's a whole aspect of research of scripting and application on projects. What's the balance of both? Where are we actually leveraging the technology and the speed towards a solution in the front end of design? Visualizing. Enscape, Lumion, Twinmotion, Unreal, Unity, all awesome. Where? How? What are we doing? Who are the players? What are the projects? What's the effectiveness? How does that link back to the financial performance? How does that all come together? So I have all that data at my fingertips. And then lastly, quick here, the laser scanning. All those gauges are all the different facets of the laser scan to convey to the firm that it's not just you walk in there, you plop the scanner, it scans around, and yay, we're finished. So much more than the 10-minute scan. Then we have individuals. So there were so many more I could show practice-wide, but they said I only have 20 minutes, and I've used almost half. Individual data. So we said everybody's in this wonderful application of Revit. We're going to analyze how we're using it. So we take those journal stats, we federate the stats, pull it into a SQL database, analyze the data, collect it over the course of, I think we're up to 3 years now. We have over 10 million rows of data. I look at a 6-month sliding window and I see what we're doing. How are we using our add-ins? The things that I've purchased in the previous slide, are we effectively using them? If we are, great, what's the value? If we're not, why? Do we need training? Do we need something? How do we actually understand? Why do I have Revit warnings? Who has the most Revit warnings? When are they fixed? Who's using which commands and why? And who's not using them? All that data is at my fingertips. And I can look at it every single day and get an understanding of how we're performing and utilizing the automations that I believe are bringing value to us as an architectural practice. Individual software consumption. Again, I make those purchases, right? BIM 360, awesome, kind of expensive, right? So you want to make sure it's being used right. Who has it assigned? Who doesn't? We're going to start a project. We're all going to be in the cloud. Great. Oh, you want 40 people in the studio? Well, I don't have 40 seats. Let's plan this. Let's schedule it. Who's using it? Who's not? How many seats have I given out to subs, to external clients? How do I just keep a handle on all of that? That's how. I get the data, I visualize the data, I pull it up in seconds, and I make an informed decision. Again, then network, same concept, network licenses. How are we using? How are we balancing? How are we engaging? If we aren't near the peak, I get worried. If we surpass the peak, I get very much more worried. So we need that happy balance right in the middle. That's going to go away as everybody's going single seat. Support. Support is huge. We want to do all this stuff. We want to do it phenomenally. We want to make digital twins. We want to engage with our data. And then we go up to somebody and they say, my Revit crashed. How often does that happen? What do we do about it? If Revit is crashing every single day, my colleagues, we got to fix that. We want to make sure that this tools work, the people are engaged. These ticket numbers, I would love if that number was 0 for a week. It could happen. I was going to say never going to happen. You never know. So we track that. We make sure we're supported so that everybody's empowered to move forward. And now the project stuff, the whole BIM process. Life cycle data, all those BIM uses, the BIM execution plan. What are you BIMing? Why are you BIMing it? I've been saying that for over a decade. Answer those 2 simple questions. If you don't know what you're BIMing, why are you BIMing it? Just stop. Document it in your BXP. Then you hear, I don't want to do a BXP. That's a massive Word document. And I say, you know what? I agree. The BXP Word document is terrible. So let's make an app for that. Turner Fleischer, where I'm lucky enough to have an awesome team, including a software developer, right? Totally not from our industry. I sat him down and I said, let's make a BXP. He said, okay. What the heck is a BXP? We explained it. He said, let's just make a couple of forms, like a Google form. What's the important data? So imagine that 30-page Word document. I got to scroll through there, fill out information. Some of the information is repetitive. So we grab the data from the financial system. So I don't have to enter project name, project number, PM, all that stuff. We know all that. I want to enter, what are my BIM goals? What are my BIM uses? Am I going to put asset management? And if I do I understand that instigates a process? And what am I going to do about that? My LOD matrix. Everybody, oh my God, it's so complicated. Why would an LOD matrix be complicated? Who's modeling what? 50 years ago, my dad's an architect. Who's drawing what? Everybody asks that question. Answer it with modeling. Software. One of the most important, I'm so tired of, oh man, we had said Revit 2022 and now somebody's using 2023. Why? Just say who's using what and you're done. And it's there, and it's documented. And if you can't answer that question, stop. That's what I say. So, well, let this one fill out, because for me, this is huge. This was a massive accomplishment last year. We got everything together, and once we were able to do it, there's my Word document. Exactly formatted. I deliver that. Nobody would have any clue this came from an online app. It's the BIM execution plan, but it was fun. And why is it fun? Because now, you knew it was going here. Now I get this. I have a Power BI dashboard of every single data point that's entered into the BXP. So who's doing what? What are your BIM goals? Who added a weird BIM goal? Who deleted the most common BIM goal if we want a coordinated model? That's an alarm for me. You don't want that? You gotta have that. So here we are now. Who has an odd software? Who put Revit 2012? That's a big risk. Because we can't do that. How are we sharing? What's the collaboration tools? Who are our contacts? They're all there. You fill them out, right? I can see, do we have common contacts? Consultants, different firms, common firms. What are the schedules? When does my team have to get involved and help to automate review and coordination? When's a project going into DD? I want to know that. Who is crazy enough to put 5mm accuracy? I want to know that. What are they planning to do in that model? This is all the data I have at my fingertips. And now, after a year, we have 100+ projects in here. I have 100+ projects of data that I can interrogate, plan, and see how to leverage and enhance the quality of the model. Quality of the model. Revit health checks. We call it model stats internally. It's a project dashboard. Every project manager goes in here. I like to say weekly. I know that's a little optimistic, but they go in here, they look at their scores. If their scores are low, they engage with their teams to enhance their models. We scan against our Turner Fleischer standards. So one office template, one set of standards. Do you have odd families, odd view names, an extensive amount of warnings? We look for these sorts of things, scan the models every day, jam the data into a SQL database, maintain that history and that legacy, and we see how models have improved or lessened over time. And then we act accordingly. Why would we do this? We're all culminating towards, I want to leverage the data for something greater. And that's our studio digital twin. So when I started 2.5 years ago, I said, this is an awesome place. You've got a really, really awesome BIM of the office. I want to take that and use it to start to function, to start to make informed decisions. So what do we have? What is a digital twin? Well, all this stuff has to come together. So why I show this presentation is because these are all of the pieces that will impact me as I start to assemble how we make a digital twin. It's not just the BIM. It's not just an individual, it's all of it together. And what do we want to do? We want to start to understand performance. So we have placed sensors all across our studio. We're analyzing temperature, humidity, pressure. And this is an old video because we just added ambient light, sound, and VOC count. So we're starting to analyze this across the history of our of the days, and we'll engage our facility managers and say, hey, it's kind of cold in one room, not in another room. We work hybrid. I can be from home. I can analyze these readings and connect with our studio experience team and let them know, saying, hey, our lab is very cold. Our lunchroom is very hot. The pressure is dry. What's going on? Let's fix this. And we're enacting decisions based on data. What do I want to do with this, though? This is great. But where is this? Where's my BIM connectivity? That's what the level of experimentation I'm at right now. So this is VCAD. Kind of cool. I've been experimenting with Proving Ground. We're going to connect with Tandem, Assemble, iTwin. Notice I'm not listing the vendor names. I don't care. This is vendor agnostic. I want to take my data that's completely pulled out. I want to jam the model into Power BI. That's my challenge right now. VCAD is pretty, so I show this one because it's pretty smooth and I'm able to slice and dice the data. If you've ever taken Revit and said file, export, ODBC and jam it into a SQL database, kind of scary. I can't believe what the amount of data tables that come out of Revit. So these outfits have started to build a wrapper around all that data, meaning I don't have to dissect that data the way I have our financial system. But this is what I want to do. I want to click on an item, connect to my IoT sensors, see how it's performing, and start to build those heat maps and connectivity of what's happening. I want to hit one of these items, connect to our people database, understand where we're sitting, what are we using, how often do we use our spaces, all that data. I want to be informed by the information so that we could function, we could adequately adapt our studio based on the information we have, fulfilling an option of a digital twin. And the digital twin itself is defined by the owners. We're the owners of our space. If I can do this, who knows what the possibilities are? I can bring in our clients, sit them down, let them understand, here's what you could do if you took our project data and you took all of your data in your environment, bring it all together like we're doing for our studio and build an experience, build something that's specifically catered for these specific individuals scattered across the globe. And that's my 20 minutes on the dot. Thank you, everyone.
Brent, you did not disappoint. Thank you so much. That was fantastic and very inspirational. And, you know, I think the concept here is, you know, open BIM is open data, having able to connect and access that data. Couple of reminders, quelques rappels. On est dans la conférence nationale.
Now at the national conference all day. There will be technical groups, technical committees. You're welcome to go see the projects on the international front. So there's many rooms you can explore.
Ongoing also in the BuildingSMART International Summit that are around. So feel free to pop in there and speak to the delegates. And also throughout the day in the national conference, there'll be French presentations. So there are simultaneous translation with headsets. So just a quick reminder. So my next guest, our next presenter is Carl Storms, who's Technical Solutions Lead at BIMTrack. Thank you, Carl.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Very tough act to follow, but now, as Monty Python says, now for something completely different. So I'm going to be talking about my open BIM journey. If you're interested in the slide deck, you can get it here from the QR code, again, with the nature of open sharing. A little quick agenda here. We're going to talk about open BIM. We're going to talk about IFCs and BCFs, although those aren't the only things that are part of open BIM. And then I'll give you some final thoughts to wrap it up. Of course, with quick introductions, who is Carl Storms? It's always awkward to talk about yourself, so I have this lovely slide that does it for me. But the Reader's Digest version, I've been in the industry for a little over 20 years. I seem to have done a little bit of everything, and that's why I'm here today. So what is open BIM? So I had heard of open BIM. I always thought it was a really interesting idea, but I didn't need it. It wasn't for me. I know how to use Revit. I was pretty comfortable with it. And if there was ever a time when somebody gave me a file that wasn't Revit, I had a secret weapon, Navisworks. What can it open? So I'm good to go. I don't need this open BIM thing. Well, in my current role, I ended up getting immersed inside of industry foundation classes, BIM collaboration format, and in the end, open BIM found me. So this is my journey. So what is open BIM? And I think before we talk about openBIM, it's relevant to understand what is BIM. And I think a lot of people here understand that it is in fact a process. It's not a software you buy at your local Best Buy. It's something that you do together. It's that building information model. It's the I that's important. I also understand in the idea of sharing and being open, when you need a definition, you always go to Wikipedia. So what it really is geometry and data. Oops, wrong data. Data. And so that's what we're looking at when we're looking at BIM, the idea that we have geometry and we have the information inside of our BIMs. So when we're looking at openBIM, the idea we are going to extend that. It's BIM plus. It's not just the geometry, it's not just the information, but it's how we share it. It's the idea that we have the ability to take the information and at its core, make it non-vendor specific, and we're able to share that information with everybody to use where they want to use it. It's also assurance. So basically what that means is that we have all of these spokes of the wheel that we're able to take advantage of when we're using openBIM. Interoperability, it's open, it's reliable. We can collaborate. That's a very big part of what you can do with openBIM. It's flexibility and sustainability. That's a big thing. And we're not only talking about the Earth sustainability, we're also talking about the ability to access our data 5, 10, 100 years from now. So openBIM is also fuel. And indulge me for a moment as I tell a story. You're on a journey of your own, you're driving down a country road, your gas light comes on, you think, you know what, I should probably pull over and get some gas. So you take your car, you find the nearest gas station, you pull in. When you pull into that gas station, it doesn't matter if you're driving a BMW, an old Ford pickup truck, or a Ferrari. What you need is there. Diesel, premium, good old regular gas, you can get it. And if you happen to be at a more progressive gas station and you're driving that Tesla, you can charge it there too. So whatever your need is available for you there at that one location. So as we see, we've got our gas station, we've got our electric pump. So how does this tie into openBIM? So think of the fuel as the data. And as we're looking here, we've got our gas station is openBIM in this analogy, and we're taking a look at what it does. The car is the fuel. The data is what we get out of that. And we have the ability, no matter what platform, we can access that data. That's the beauty of openBIM. And it also makes sure that no matter what time it is, today, tomorrow, 5 years from now, we can access that data wherever we need to do it. So that is openBIM. So what's included inside of that? Well, we've talked a little bit about, we've talked about IFC. Here's a quick, screenshot of what you can do with IFC. The idea is that no matter what program you're using, you can take that information, that representation of the data, you can share it with somebody using a different program, and you can move it around. Everyone has access to a representation of the data to review that as they're doing their own work. We also have BCF. So again, the idea here is that we have different programs. They export an IFC. That goes into a model checking program, which then outputs a BCF, which then can be used to bring back. We have that circle of life, if you will, working our way through with the information. We know what's happening. Nothing falls through the cracks. But it's not just those two platforms, and I'm sure we've learned here this week, there's so much more. The buildingSMART data dictionary, the OpenCDE, which I'll talk a little bit more in a second, the information delivery specification. Then we go a little bit wider. We've got things that exist outside of buildingSMART, GBXML, CDGML, COBie, and then at a higher level, the idea itself of open data and open source. So again, openBIM is a very large community, but it's not by itself. So what is an IFC? So if we get very down to the nitty-gritty, it is industry foundation classes. And it took me the longest time to remember the S at the end of its classes. It's library, it's data. So if you go straight to the horse's mouth, this big, long, wordy definition tells you what IFC is. Again, we can also go to the ISO definition, but I like to simplify it. It's an open schema for model exchange as part of an openBIM workflow. So what does that mean? So a lot of people will tell you that IFC is the PDF of BIM. And I really don't like that because it's different than a PDF. But at its core, the idea that an IFC is a representation that you can share to review, then yes, it's like a PDF. It's a locked document that you can use to make sure that you're on the right path. So what is contained? What is an IFC? What is at its core? And for those of you that have always wondered, why do we have these different colors in the logo? Now you know. It's all the phases you do when you're working through design. Design, procurement, assembly, and operations, all in one location. But again, we come back to that theme that you're going to see throughout this presentation. It's geometry, it's data. That is what is in the IFC. So it's not just the geometry as everyone always thinks. So how did it get started? Now, the IFC has been around for a while. There's a lot of things it's gone through, so this is a truncated version. But back in 1994, Autodesk started the idea of IFC, a way to share that model data and the information. 1996, we've got the first version. 97, we have the International Alliance of Interoperability. It's created, and we have version 1.5. 2.0 in 1999. In 2005, buildingSMART gets on board and starts overseeing, becoming the shepherd of the project. And then we see in 2006, what is still probably the most popular version of IFC, the 2x3 is available. We're going on to 2004 and the ISO certification in 2013. We get another ISO certification in 2018. 4.3, which is still in development in 2001. And maybe IFC 5.0 in 2023. I spent all day yesterday in the technical sessions. I learned a lot. It was a great experience, but the question mark is there for a reason. So why IFC? Why are you using it? Well, it's flexible. It's an open standard. Again, if there's any place where people understand what an open standard is and the value of it, it's here. And just like the image shows, it's a toolbox full of everything that you can need. It's interoperable. Now, this particular image comes from my friends at the BIM Quarter blog, great place for information on openBIM, IFC, but I thought this is a very a fitting slide when we see all the different plugs. For those of you that travel the world, and we have people from all over the world here today, you know that you always have to make sure you've got your adapter. There's different plugs. That's what IFC is. But again, we're back to that geometry and that data. That is your IFC. You put that into your BIM application. Again, we're agnostic. As Brent said, we don't talk about the platform, but we do. These are all the different platforms, just a small handful that you can use. And so no matter who you're working with, if they don't have the tool you told them to use in that BXP, they can use theirs if we're working with openBIM. It's also future-proof. How many people know some of these things that we see on this slide here back when we get started, things that we can't do anymore? Who could actually access that floppy disk if they had it? I have no idea where you would track one down if you needed it. The pen plotters were a pain in the butt, but they've become cool again. So if you have one, they're definitely worth money. But as you can see, the idea of what the future holds, if we go 5 years, maybe even not that in the future, we're using AR, we're totally autonomous workflow, we're still gonna have models, and being able to share those in a format that everyone can access, highly beneficial. And of course, we can coordinate with these. So we've got to export that data to an IFC to someone else to use it as a reference. That's the key, using it as a reference. And then there needs to be a change request. Well, let's submit a BCF instead of a change request. We can use that as an issue, and we'll get to that a little bit. But what we really want to see is how can we use IFCs? And I thought in a 20-minute presentation, how do I show IFCs in motion? Well, we create a video. So essentially what we're showing here is the same IFC model that's used in 6 different softwares. So right now we're in Slibri Anywhere. That's the free viewer anyone can access. We've imported the IFC. Now we're looking at it inside of Navisworks. Again, that exact same model. We can navigate around, we can use the tools, we can clip it to see what's in place. Again, use it for our needs and our software of choice. We jump into now, we're in Trimble Connect, a cloud platform. So again, we upload it into the cloud, we have access to this, and we can get a little deeper in here. We can turn on, turn off levels inside of it. We can see the information, change the colors. We can make that IFC geometry do what we need to do and access the information. Here we are in BIM Vision. And we actually get right into the data. We talked about the data that's available inside of an IFC. We can see what it is, where the information is. We can turn things on. We can click an actual element and zoom right in and get that data out of it. Again, we've talked a lot about data. We can see that it's available here. Inside of ArchiCAD, again, we've got a beautiful representation of that geometry. We can navigate around. We can see what we need to do. Again, using it in our platform of choice to make it do what we need to do so that we can extend our work and get the most out of it. And then lastly, we look at Revit. And the really cool thing about this example is the IFC is not, I repeat, is not inside of Revit. This is a linked version of the IFC. And even though it's not there, I can spin it around. I can take a look at it. I can chop it down to get the information I need. And I can even click on information. And you can see, as we're seeing in the properties as we scroll through, I can click on a toilet. I can grab all of that IFC data out of it. Again, and it's not even in the model. It's a linked file. So I'm keeping my proprietary file very small and svelte as I'm doing this. So again, lots of different ways that we can view IFCs. So now we talk about the BCF. So what is the BCF? Well, it is the BIM collaboration format. And so essentially what this means, again, we go to the horse's mouth from buildingSMART. It allows you to leverage the data of the IFC or any model you're using and share that data with someone else. You want to make sure you don't lose the information. Again, our friends at Wiki, they can't go wrong with that. But at its core, it is an open data exchange format for BIM. This is what I like to think of BCF as. So what's contained? Well, you can see there's a lot of things here inside of the BCF that you can use. But again, another thing about being an open standard is that this is the starting point. Especially if using the API, which we'll see in a moment, you can expand upon this and people can take this and make it bigger, make it grander. An example of using it in an issue case, which a lot of people do use it for. So you take a picture, you want to know who will resolve it, when it'll be resolved in a comment, and you add it to an XYZ location inside of the model for all to see. So how did it get started? So pre-2010, it didn't exist. The problem here was that when you wanted to share that data, you had to just share the model. We all know that models can be very large. So we wanted a way to share the data, just the data. So Celebri and Tekla got together and we had the BCF XML version 1, the file-based version. 2013, BIM-SMART, buildingSMART got involved in shepherding what we did. 2.0 came out in 2014, and the API, the RESTful API. The 2.1 versions of both, the file-based and server-based, came out in 2017. And then last year we had 3.0 as well as the Foundations API, which we'll talk about a bit in a second. So why BCF? Just like we saw about IFC, it's part of the open BIM, it's open standard, it's flexible. And I love this little graph because, as everyone here would agree to, open BIM is definitely good for business. It's interoperable. Again, we are able to share information several different ways with different platforms. A lot of platforms now have native support for BCF, whether they call it an issue, a note, an assignment, a task. It's a way that you can export data and share it with others. There's a ton of support for this. And at the time of me putting together this slide, you can see that there's 88 products that support XML, and there's 24 that support the API. You can go to the buildingSMART webpage and see all of those, scroll through, check, is it API, is it XML? We talked about the options. So we have XML. That's the file-based. That's if you want to share the file. You can go to GitHub, get access. Again, that's the open source portion. XML, the nice thing about it is it's human readable, as they say. So even if you don't know how to code, you can read what's going on inside there. And for those that are wondering, XML stands for Extensible Markup Language. If you're going to be doing this, Notepad++ is your friend. Again, open source, free platform, but a great way to view not only XML files, but any file basically that you want to read. Pre-BCF 2.1, so 2.0 and earlier, it was a BCF zip file. All that means is that it was a zip file that came down with the file handle BCF zip. When they came out with 2.1, they just dropped the zip. So now it's just a simple BCF file. It is still a zip file. You still need to extract it to see what's inside if you dare take a look. And then we have the API. So the API is the server-based, the web-based version. This is where you can create a cloud-based platform and you can use the BCF schema. So here it is, the REST API, again on GitHub, open source, free for all to review. Again, human readable, it's JSON. What's JSON, you say? Well, it's JavaScript object notation. Again, it's just the way that you call the information. The nice thing about this is that there is a Swagger Hub page. What's a Swagger Hub page? It gives you all of the information, kind of like documentation, but you can actually access it. You can test your calls. So for those that are making the APIs or tweaking, they can see the information, how to do it all in one place. Again, anyone can try. So why? Well, it's always evolving. We talked about BCF3, the latest version that's out there. And like most things, people are still using 2.1 because it takes a while for everyone to adjust and get to the new standard, but lots of new things came with BCF3. Not the least of which was the simultaneous release of the Foundations API. And so what this means is going forward, there's now going to be layers. So the Foundation API will be at the bottom. It's going to handle things like authentication, the authorization, the conventions. So it'll be the base layer for all things moving forward. And then we have other things like BCF 3.0. We talked about the open CDE, the documents, property exchange, and others that come along. This is the real way forward for BCF. It also has a Swagger page. Again, we can all go take and learn what we want from it. It's also collaborative, issue tracking. It does a lot of things we see, but a lot of people will use this. Many different softwares take advantage. The idea is things don't slip through the crack, identify, track, analyze, and resolve. So some final thoughts as my clock ticks down here. Of course, openBIM is not perfect. Nothing ever is. But the idea is that as we're working through, it's always improving. And the nice thing about openBIM or any open source or open data platform is it's not just the extra features that get decided today in this room and other rooms by committees. It's the community. It's the people that come and see these and think, this is a great initiative. I'm going to help out. That's what really makes the difference. Along with the features, BCF 3.0, IFC 4.3, and again, sorry for the plug, but hopefully IFC 5.0. And it's better than the alternative. Again, some of us in the room remember some of these things. And honestly, if I have to sit through another Zoom meeting to talk about coordination, I can't handle it. So we want to be able to do this by sending a simple BCF. Or of course, our room full of plans. Again, we have this open data that we can use throughout. We want to avoid this. So all I can say in the end is you want to make sure that you give it a try. As far as questions go, you can find me in the break. And if you want to get hold of the presentation, QR code is there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carl. That was great. A very good overview of functionalities and what openBIM is. So thank you very much for that, Carl. Our next presenter, Veljko Janjic from Bexcel, will come to talk about openBIM in the construction process. Thank you. Thank you.
So hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me. So first of all, thanks Eric and Martin for inviting me here. So it's really a great pleasure to be here in Montreal. Also thanks for great presentations, you guys. Congratulations. So I'm Veljko Janjic. I'm president of Bexcel Consulting. I'm also a steering committee member of BuildingSMART International Construction Room, and in Europe, vice chairman of FIDIC-EFCA BIM and Digitalization Committee. So today I'm going to talk about construction phase mostly, and where are we with openBIM in construction phase. So about us, got presence in 65 countries at the moment, so the total value around $250 billion projects. We have a portfolio of products, all of them openBIM, based on openBIM, and I will explain to you a bit how they can be used in a certain use cases, and got a lot of recognition. We are really proud to be all the time when we compete finalists, and last time we have been the winner for Innovation Award for BuildingSMART international competition. Usually the myth is that BIM is not ideal for all types of the projects. Usually someone says, no, it's not for infrastructure. Now with 4.3 we sorted out that, or it's not for ports because, or it's not for a road because alignment is still not perfect. No, that's myth. Literally, you can see statistics on the left-hand side, how more or less equally successfully BIM can be used on the totally different types of the projects. Also, bit is that BIM is primarily used by designers. Then we have the clients or project managers sometimes, but contractors are not there. They are not supporting, and we see that we are not having even today too much contractors with us. So you can see also that situation is much better and is moving in the right way. So contractors also started to use BIM. So what is the most beneficial thing we can do with BIM? Is it drone? Is it laser scan? Is it AI, machine learning, or so on? World Economic Forum says it's integrated BIM. And I will say this is single source of truth, and I will try to elaborate a bit more what it is and where we are today and what are the challenges we are facing with. So construction industry, by far the most complex endeavor we as humans have in terms of construction management. Here are all the issues we have on the left-hand side, and there is no any other, let's say if you're talking about decent-sized projects, several hundred million, so not billion, you have a huge number of stakeholders, huge number of tasks in construction schedule, cost estimate is very complicated, the logistics is extremely difficult, prefabrication, production, then coordination, safety issues, and so on. So if we do not have a system which can handle this, or systems, we will fail, because the only constant thing in construction projects beside all of these are constant changes. So if we cannot immediately react and have to manually update certain things, we will fail. And that's why today 99% of the projects in construction phase fail, even if the BIM is very good. And this also clearly tells us where we are. So why we are not using BIM? This is UK research. 2/3 says because it's not required. So I have a mobile phone here. I believe all of you have it. It's not mandatory by law in my country, in Canada, in the States, and we all have it. I decided to use plane to come here, although it was not required. Eric haven't mentioned in invitation, you should not use boat, you should come with plane, because it gives me the benefits. And we are smart as humans, and if we do not see the benefits for us, we will not use it. So the reason is that contractors and a lot of others do not see at the moment the benefits. Say, I will use it when it's mandatory, so it means I do not trust, I do not see the benefits. I tried and it failed. So we need to skip from what I used to call a Hollywood BIM and move to the real benefit-oriented BIM. So again, my colleagues already mentioned about IFC, is it good or bad? And I used to frequently quote what Churchill said about democracy. The worst form of government, except all the others we tried from time to time. And that's actually what IFC and BCF are. So I just don't want to, now this is our construction room, so you're most welcome to join us and definitely listen some of interesting presentations we are going to also have today. And we are doing a lot of interesting stuff. These are some of the initiatives we have. I don't want to go into too much into details, but of course, if you're interested, we can talk during the break about this. Okay, so these are all schemas, what is developed, and I don't want to take too much of your time. This is how schedule is generated, estimate, quantity takeoffs, and everything which is important in construction phase. But what I want to tell you where we are today. So we have a really decent system on the left-hand side. So BIM authoring tools, IFC, BCF, CD, everything works fine. But on the right-hand side, we usually have totally different tools, and we just do not utilize the benefits of the BIM data, but manually create construction schedule, estimate, or procurement plan or, human resources, logistics on site and so on. So, and then connect this with BIM model. And whenever it's changed, you need to do that again or find some scripts how to do that. And the problem is that estimate, this is a time component. Those bricks means that, we have estimate from 2 months ago, schedule 4 months, something 6 months, and so on. And this is not a single source of truth. So the vision will be to have something like that. It's not necessarily one tool, could be several, but to have a BIM-centric project management. And to be honest, of course, it might not be true, I might be wrong, but until this is done, we are not going to have a success in construction management because it's, again, the most complex in terms of project management venture we have. And with the automation, suggest to move to a few examples now. So I will show you now the simulations which look like Hollywood BIM, but the truth is that all of these simulations have been generated in a couple of hours by using all intelligence and all data we already have in IFC. So you can see totally different types of the projects. And as I said, it's very detailed. They look nice. You see literally every hour what's happening on site. But the analytics you see sometime on the side, line of balance, location-based scheduling, Gantt charts, cash flow analysis, is something which is much more important than that nice video. And again, it's developed in a couple of hours. Literally, in the first quarter of next year on our CD, you can just upload your IFC files, choose a different methodologies or schedule logic, and the system will send you back simulation like this. Or you can just see it in a CD. So that's the automation. You can do 10,000 tasks in, let's say, Microsoft Project and Primavera, and of course you can integrate this with Bexel as well. But the problem is, can you really do that? Can you assign all resources can you define a proper relationships? And again, on that football stadium, that's for next World Cup, now next month in Qatar, we had 72 million property values in IFC. And shall we start from scratch or use all this huge amount of data to make intelligent analysis? So this is the vision, what you can do if you optimize your processes. And the idea is that, again, it is fully data-based. So this visualization, which is shown here, believe or not, is the least important thing. We should focus on the data. Project managers do not need the nice videos. They need to see a data. And with the assembly line principles, what Henry Ford did more than a century ago, we could speed up, that's McKinsey said, not we, speed up certain activities 5 to 10 times. And that's actually what we are in Bexel doing for the last 15 years. And this is also statistics where BIM is used, mostly in conceptual and design stage. And what is the most cash intensive, most challenging, most error prone phase of the project? It's construction. And you see statistics, not very optimistic, because it's challenging, it's very difficult. There are by far much more aspects and domains which has to be evaluated in construction stage. And this is an interesting number from one very developed European country. So actually on site, workers efficiently work 15% of time. Theoretical maximum is 70. Because of course we need to walk to the certain zone, we maybe need to mix the paint in order to be ready and so on. But between 15 and 70% is a huge gap. Does it mean that construction industry is not efficient? No. It means that it's extremely, again, complex to manage such a projects. And these are a number of reasons. One of them is not using location-based scheduling. And just, okay, this is our ecosystem, and you can see a lot of BCF and IFC and other open standards. I wanted to say that although it looks complex, the schemas of solutions could or should be complex. What is necessary that user interface is easy. So that's the focus. So it could be and should be very complex in order to allow users to use it quite efficiently and so on. So I will just give you some ideas about the process maps. Again, looks a lot of complicated by the idea that whenever you update the model, you immediately have automatically new cost estimate or new construction schedule or new data check, and then, for example, use BIM track and send to the designers what is missing in their properties and so on. So I'm just going to show, I have some problems with this. So these are some tools we have. So you have a desktop system, which is the core. So it's a Bexel engineer who do all this mathematics, analytics, intelligence. So this is a cash flow, cash detection, line of balance, simulations. This is a viewer part of our CD. So again, needs to work very fast with a large project. So similar like some other tools, fully IFC based. But I will show you later some cool stuffs, maybe unique stuffs we have. So one of them is ability to immediately see a 4D simulation. We are going to also improve this in the future, but you already can have a color schemas and other stuff. And then it's an interesting product which is called Portfolio Manager, which allows us to immediately see a number of clashes. I call all my projects, for example, in France, or a cost of concrete works I have in Germany, or number of data checks which are delivered, which are successfully passed in a certain, I don't know, in Montreal. This is a line of balance. I don't have too much time to elaborate this, but believe or not, this was used before Gantt charts. So we believe, and in Bexel we use both critical path and line of balance, but I just want to show you what was first. It was line of balance, and this is Empire State Building, the tallest building for 40 years in the world, and it was built without Gantt chart. On a paper, they develop line of balance, and how much time they need? 13 months. If someone is general contractor here, will he sign the contract for 30 months for that building? No, it was minimum 2 to 3 years. And this is one example, animation, one of the largest hospitals in the world. So this simulation is developed 10 years ago. So just to give you an idea, we need still to shift, and fortunately we are kind of success in this and got a lot of top contractors in the world. But this all analytics on the left-hand side is much more important. How much time the team on site needed to develop this simulation? 1 day. And this is, then you can trust. Because if you deliver in construction project information in 3 weeks, value of that information is 0. If you receive it delivered today, it's 100. If you receive it in 5 days, it's 30. Because you don't need that information when it's too late. And now I'm also personally a big fan of various analytics and reports, and my team as well. We again develop a system when a single button, all analytics inside Bexel can be transferred. So these are the reports. You see in the core is Bexel Viewer, cloud system. Everything is on our CD, and you can see unlimited number of color coding. So this is a clash detection. This is a cash flow per subcontractor in the project. This is a very detailed cost estimation according to any breakdown structure. Literally all of this analysis are automatically generated. And if you want, you can join us at 11 today, and we can generate just during the presentation just for you and send you on your laptop this presentation, and you can see how it works. So these are also earned value analysis, which are crucial. So where we are losing or gaining money, where we are making the profits, and so on. So the idea is to always know what is success of your project. Unfortunately, you also have ability to have, when you see all these complex charts, a productivity of your contractors or how efficiently your crane works. Without that, every good project manager will tell you it's impossible to manage successfully the project. And so the idea is to utilize all this and produce as much information as you can, but when? Just in time. If you need 2 months or 3 weeks to do that, it doesn't make sense. So you can use that QR code, go on our website and play around with all those samples and see if you have any questions. You can ask me later. What we are talking about in reality, if we just increase the profit of company construction for 1%, we could double sometimes their profit margin. So that's why usually return on investment in a proper BIM is between 10 and 15 times, not percent. So that's why BIM properly used is a big difference. And now in a whole life cycle, of course, we could lower carbon footprint, do a lot of optimization with this. And I'm going to show you a Bexel CD in a very short 1-minute video how it looks like. So you can upload all your models, project versions, define access rights. What is also very interesting, natively connect all the documents you have in a document management system with the BIM models and connect all maintenance plans and connect, of course, all those dashboards as well. So the idea is whenever you develop a BIM model, you can automatically check. For example, you can define that each pump must have a warranty, user manual, and drawing, let's say. And the system can automatically tell you if the project is ready for handover phase or the data is missing. So the idea is to always connect every information you have, whether it's not, it is a task, it is a cost item, it is a BOQ item, it is a document, it is a maintenance plans, it is a document, it is an entry to BIM model element or group of elements. If you can do that, then you are talking about true common data environment. Otherwise, you have two separated systems which work independently, and we do not utilize a lot of benefits of BIM. So this is a vision of Arthur Clarke. We hope we could do a small step in that direction. And I would like to invite you to join us in construction room and listen today to lectures where everything presented here will be elaborated in more detail. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Veljko. Thank you. So very interesting to see. We started with an organizational perspective on data and open data, and then the design phase and construction, and now we're going to the operations phase. So the
next speaker will speak of a standardization of data, and will speak of ENCFs. Mr. Dominique Dubuc, founder of Archie Data. Thank you. Thank you. The presentation will be in French. So good morning. I'm an architect, Dominique Dubuc. I started my career. In fact, I dedicated my career to developing tools for conceptualization. I started in the 80s, integrating Calcom in the company Calcom, and back then we called BIM something else. But since 95, we've developed several tools for everything that is management of buildings, and now for BIM. So what I will do is present a case study, a project in particular that we did with the SNCF. We're still, this project is still underway. This is the railway organization, SNCF, for anyone who's managing railways and locomotives, etc. The railways, anything associated to transportation with trains. So the study case is how to standardize data in their digitization project. They have a project called BJN. It's the BIM with a digital trainway. and it's been underway since 2018. So we have been developing software since '95. We have softwares for BIM on management. We have certain over 3,000 buildings that we manage for certain clients, and we have a lot of plans and models. We've also started scripting EFCs since 2010. We were creating our BIM models based off 2D designs. We were so good at it that we ended up helping others develop their 3D modelizations, and all through IFC sheets or IFC dossiers. So the idea is to create a database based from those kinds of databases or those kind of files, and obviously we want to create a standardized BIM database for GIM, which is exploitation management. We're not necessarily in construction, but the idea is that for building management, that's what we specialize in. So we create models, and the idea, obviously, while using geomatics, one of the elements that we call the indoor GIS, that means we want to be able to rally equipments for peoples and occupants, and this is one of the things that we do for historical building management. Now, with regards to the SNCF, they really want to, their objective was to digitize train stations and to connect them directly to the field workers who were doing maintenance, etc. All of this in a framework, obviously, of recuperating or gathering the information or the expertise of the workers. There's a lot of movement in building management. How can we get the information from people's heads and bring it back to our programs and create models from that? So all this, of course, to create dashboards, to create, to help in the decision making, centralize the information, and finally, to digitize the train stations. Well, they've taken on certain projects for cloud systems for all the train stations, so that they can couple that to a retro BIM, which means digitizing the train stations with BIM and having a cloud network for it all. So they started with the SNCF by just having projects. They have architects, a subdivision called Alep, where they do projects in France for train stations and other clients. And from there, from what they produced or built, they really wanted to be able to go target the train stations that they hadn't worked on, meaning gathering all the information from those other clients to gather all that to do management BIM. The project of the SNCF affects or touches upon 122 train stations. That is approximately 60% of the real estate park. It was a very ambitious project, digitizing all of the train stations that will go from the tube all the way to the network. But nonetheless, the SNCF has 3,000 train stations, so there's a lot of train stations that we still have to manage and we have to address. And these are all major questions that we have to address, considering the amount of work that has yet to be done. First and foremost, how did we get this contract? Well, we won for quotes, for a call for tenders. It was us who was selected. And the idea is that we didn't have to develop a solution. We already had a solution. And this allowed us to step forward over the competition, meaning we could store data, we could store models. And when we talk about the digitizations, we always say, well, the model's just going to arrive out of nowhere. No, we have over 100 models per project. We have to combine it all. We had to create a plan to store and archive the plans from all kinds. We also had a dashboard so that we could actually focus the information for the management, and we had a visualizer, a 3D visualizer that could always allow us to really see the models in a three-dimensional manner. So the idea here is that we have to develop a new approach, and this approach was one for creating an engine to manage the information before it be transferred to the workers or the other tools that were involved. So how do we operate? Well, we already had a methodology to taking very scattered information and to reorganize them or standardize them in a spatial measure. as architects do quite well, is to gather all the information and put it in a visual manner, whether it be the portfolios of various levels, etc., of the programs and the models. And then from there we had the occupants, the positions, the various equipment. So these are all the layers you can see. The equipment, as we've always worked by using the uniformat standard, as it was standard. That standard was created in 95 in part in Montreal here, and we've started integrating uniformat to the BIM. Obviously, it's a good reason to do so because everyone is starting to get agreeing to the fact that we should have a more standardized format for all this information. So essentially, we already had a standardized approach to organizing this information. We created a project a few years ago for Eureka, Eurostar. These are French partners, and we came to the conclusion that the digital twin, so we have multiple digital twins, and they should be focused in the model and not on the information, but a registry where we can know who is looking at the digital twin and how can I speak to them using the various programs. So we really developed a strategy around the EFC model where the information is in the model, and certain informations are not in the model. So we really looked at those gaps in the schematics here of ENCF. We had data entries, or we did some form of tailor to fit retro BIMs. Then we organized the data to send it because of our system that is called Archipel, which is an exchange protocol between our partners, to then send it to supervisors or visualization tools. Everyone has visualization tools, but nobody had the upstream version. It means the first portion, organizing the information, standardize it before sending it off to the various other tools that will allow to consult it or visualize it. So I present here now a little bit the steps. So we created online software that will allow for the validation of the models and then send that information out. So let's really look at this this little chart here. We looked at the concept of a dictionary. That was the first point. Dictionary is the typology of all the types of informations that can be handled or managed for a client, and then understanding the data behind the intellectual properties of those words. So behind that, we are allowed to then decide this type of equipment is a shovel or etc. before we go and find it in the actual model. Where does it belong? What system does it belong to? What kind of standardization is coded to that kind of item? So we will then define by various families or subgroups of families all the typologies that can exist in all of the systems that will be collected in this database. And on the other side, the flip side of that coin, we will have properties associated to that item. And from there, all the systems will be interrelated that will then incorporate that item in the model. The dictionary is more or less the laser point or the magnifying glass on exactly one item, and every time it is updated, it's updated through all the layers of each of these programs. Certain properties can be associated to items. You can see the green points here. For example, these green points represent when is this item pertinent in the model, at the beginning, at the end, at this phase, at this level, etc. We can see what kind of precision we can bring to various items, whether it be voltage or density, etc. So that's a dictionary. The dictionary I defined with my client. Then we want to archive the information. We need an archiving place. This is where we receive all of the models by region, by site, by professional, by discipline. And from there, within each of these models that I've received, whether it be the engineering portion, what do I have within that? Because there are no two projects that are the same, and the contractors, etc., they will give us the models. It might be mechanical, etc. How can we then find within each of the models the exact items we're looking for in the electricity department or etc. So the archiving essentially is there to be able to find information quickly through all of the models that are possible. And every time we receive a model, a model, we bring it on the cutting board, we cut it apart, we dissect it, so then we can find all of the elements and properties that exist within that model to then go to the next step, which is validation, which means that we've created a checker. And this will allow us to design rules. Is the model itself well dissected? Did this equipment receive the appropriate properties, etc.? So the checker validates the dictionary. So we need the checker to validate the dictionary for each of the models that are archived that will then be presented by a contractor, whomever it may be, to then tailor fit the standards and needs to the train station specifically, and then validate each of the rules that's associated to all of the occurrences that I may have found within that specific model. And based on each of those elements, does it correspond exactly to the dictionary's requirements and all the rules that were established for that dictionary? If I'm doing management BIM, I must remove certain details. Have the elements been updated with too much details or not enough details? So all this validation or approval is done through the checker online. For example, now one more time, the models are sent to us, they go through, they're archived, they go through the validation process. It's quite difficult because there's a lot of rules. So we have not necessarily decided to refuse all the models that are sent, because there also would be too many back and forth between the professionals and the managers who work for us. So this is why we developed our next solution, our next tool, and I'll present it in just a second, who will now transform these models, which then allows to not only just determine that one model was missing a specific value, or that, hold on. Okay, so from there, we'll go into transformation of the model once the checker has approved the elements. And the transformation should not be requested immediately from the service provider or the client. There are certain informations that we should not ask to be incorporated directly into the model, because we don't necessarily need, and they would probably create more errors. So the idea is that we're going to recreate new models based on their models, based off the archiving and the dictionary that will have been developed and decided on. And from there, we will have certain tabs or certain things that need to be filled out in the objective of broadcasting that information through modern communication forms and sharing platforms, etc. So now we have a whole bunch of tools to broadcast information throughout various organizations. And once again, let's make it clear that this information is to be clear and validated. So this is the process that we've created to transform a model and dissect it to then extract the right information, then send those information to the right systems. The objective of, obviously, at the end of it all, is to send the appropriate information to the right fields, the management tools, the engineering, even as far, it could go as far as the janitors. From there, we'll have those specific models created to those specific workforces, and then they can give us retroactiveness or feedback on these models they receive with a specific form of a ticket. They can fill out the ticket, which will then retroactively modelize and update our own models built, meaning at this point, we can have what human is going to do what work based on what model, and what information will they be receiving and how will they be updating it. And this will allow for much cleaner and more efficient management. Even though this is very automated, it allows us to do a lot of tracking of all the information going in and out. So that is the tool that we're developing with SNCF to allow them to manage more adequately all their installations or their train stations. Now, for us, let's speak about the roadmap for our own roadmap. This is one of the avenues that we determined was important. We worked with in France for the CSTB, which is the Scientific and Technological Building Department. and we looked with them to see how exactly we can work in the future, what avenues exist in the future. So from there, we'll use the AFC4 to encode everything that is a technical networking within a building. It's not just a cold and hot water and electricity. There can be many, many other elements. So we're developing this multi-layered networking tool, and we're going to use FC4 to encode that information. Now, beginning of next year, we will be sending our interzone geomatic program using AutoCAD, and from there we will be able to do anything that's associated to the continued management and the updating of portfolios. It's simple to say that we have all great projects with a great model. Now, once the project is delivered, the third floor has been renovated, the fourth floor has been changed. This management aspect is being developed on how we're developing the management or the continued management on how exactly we can keep all these changes up to date. And now also we're working on these maquette lights, which means they're models, but they're light version of models based from data. Meaning, once again, we can create datas based from collected datas that come from various systems to reproduce models. So that's what we're working on now. And finally, we will continue the visualization using GTEF online, and whether it be for the light models or the other models, the pre-constructed models, to really funnel that online and have it be shared throughout the entirety of the planet. So that's it. That's all I have to say. And I finished a minute before my time. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you, Dominic. Very interesting. And these are obviously local products straight from Quebec. Awesome. I think that's what's most interesting between openBIM, is that it opens a lot of possibilities to the markets to develop solutions. Anyways, it's a great opportunity.
9 minutes in advance. And I don't have seats for a panel discussion, so I won't have people stand up and discuss. So I'll give the 9 minutes back to you so that you can take time, stretch your legs, go upstairs and see our partners, which I thank, and we'll see each other back at 11 here. Or like I said, if you want to walk around and pop your head into the other technical rooms, you're welcome to do so. So see you at 11. Thank you.